Hey guys, so in the last video, looks like a rip. Yeah, in the last video, we started working on the front end for a sort of a budget management tool. We're going to extend that and do some kind of maybe like retirement and savings functionality, pay stub calculator, maybe simulate moving to a state with different tax structure or something like that. We'll do some cool things, but first I just wanted to lay out the groundwork for the front end, and now we're going to lay out the groundwork for the API. I think we'll do the back end probably in Symfony. I'm familiar with it. It's pretty stable community, so let's go ahead and get started with that now. Alright, so a quick overview of what our app looks like. We did the front end earlier today. All it is a simple budget with an income section and an expense section, and these are income items, these are expenses. Haven't even added the totals up yet. So let's create some functionality. Let's make it so that we can save our budget to a web server. So we'll just go ahead and fire up Symfony. Let's install it rather. Symfony is a PHP framework. It's my favorite web framework. Even if PHP is a little lacking in functionality, I think Symfony is the best web framework available right now for creating APIs. So let's see, let's get an installation guide. Alright. So we should already have this here. Creating Symfony applications, and they've changed this. Is this the 3.3? Alright. Guess they have an installer now. That's cool. And I guess this is it, huh? So we'll do Symfony new. We want to create this as a separate project to our front end. Symfony new My Money Manager API. This is going to download everything for us. I think contains an empty project. The installer checks if your system meets the technical requirements, and it gives us the requirements if we don't have them. Symfony branch. Hopefully this is giving us the latest version of Symfony. Yay, Symfony 3.3.4. It gives us instructions on what to do. Didn't used to get this. This is kind of cool. I guess React and Symfony both now tell you exactly what to do to get things started. So that makes things easier. Let's take a look. So I use PHP Storm for Symfony applications, and we are, of course, right here. Cool. So here's our app. It's telling us we should configure our application, the parameters. So I think we're gonna store this stuff in MySQL for now. It's a pretty easy to use database. So I think I already have it here. MySQL. Maybe you have to turn it on. I'm not going to go over how to install MySQL unless we don't already have it. Maybe we don't have it. I can't remember how you start this. Brew. So I think info MySQL. So it looks like we installed MySQL with Homebrew. So to install that, you would do brew install MySQL. Maybe we've installed your MySQL database without a root password. Okay, so to start MySQL, we need to run this process. Oh, MySQL's not installed. Cool, so we'll get to go over installing it then. Brew install MySQL. And I think that's a pretty recent version. We're not going to get too serious about this. Oops, don't need to save. It's updating Homebrew. Homebrew's kind of slow, unfortunately. Anyways, while that's installing, we can kind of take a look at what a Symfony application structure looks like. So parameters here contains configuration for things like databases, mail. We can add our own configuration parameters, which we will later probably, to specify things like API endpoints for APIs that we integrate with, or directories to store our files in, things like that, external resources. The next important file to take a look at is the app kernel, which contains all of the bundles. Bundles is it's just a package full of code for the Symfony environment. So things like the Twig bundle contains rendering libraries. Monologue is a logging library. Swift Mailer, email. Doctrine is our ORM, which does the database abstraction layer. And then, of course, we've got App Bundle, which is our bundle. So take a look at the App Bundle, which is over here in Source. And App Bundle doesn't have anything in it right now. That's okay. I think... I might be wrong. How does it... Okay, routing is done this way, so... Yes. Okay, so if we look at our routing configuration up here, we can see our app bundle controller. We use annotations for routing. So what that means is that you can use this guy, this little route annotation here, which I believe has to be imported. Yep. And so we're saying if we hit the... basically the base URL, this is the controller for that URL. It's called homepage right now. We're building an API, so it's not going to be a homepage. We're actually going to be returning JSON. That's okay for now. Let's see where... Ooh. Oh, we have MariaDB. Is, I think, the spiritual successor to MySQL, open source at least. Dude. Hey, look, MariaDB is started. Let's see if we can connect. Okay, Yeah, so I guess I installed MariaDB. You could do MySQL or MariaDB. MariaDB, I believe, is the one under active management that's open source. I don't even know the history anymore, so just know that we've got a MariaDB instance running now that we can connect to. And it is on our local host. So we're going to connect to it. Maybe that would be better, bigger. Check how this looks. Yeah, that looks good. So we're going to create a database. And we're going to call it, what is our project called? My Money Manager. So we'll call it My Money Manager. My Money Manager. Let's see. So how do we create a database in MariaDB? I don't even know. It's been too long. Oh, okay. So we just say create database, DB name, no quotes. Maybe we can't have. Oh, it looks like we can't have the hyphens. Okay. So now we have a database here. So in our parameters file, we're going to add the database name here, My Money Manager. That corresponds to the database we just created. The host is our local host here, which is 127.0.0.1. Database port is the default port. I think it's 3306. Root is our user. We don't have a password. It's just local. So let's go ahead then and start working with the ORM. We're going to have to look at the docs because I haven't done this in a while. Let's see. What do you call it? Doctrine. Let's just look up Symphony doctrine. Or actually, you know what? Let's just stub out our endpoints for now. So what we're going to do, we're going to stub out our endpoints. So we're going to create a new controller here. And we're going to call it, we're just going to copy, we're going to duplicate our default controller here. Where is duplicate? I'm just going to do Command-C, Command-V. And we're going to call this budget controller. Budget controller is going to be responsible for all our CRUD operations for budgets. So we're going to get a list of our budgets. We're going to be able to save our budgets through here. Also, let's take a look at routing here. App controller type annotation. I think we can give our base route Symphony controller. I think we can give like a base route so we can prepend everything with budget. Controller gets a route. Let's see. Let's see. Symphony controller base URL. No, let's see. Oh. There's some kind of annotation you can put at the top of a controller, but we might not. We don't need it for now. But it was, the idea was that we could put this up here, and then this would just be get or whatever, but that's okay. It'll be okay. Let's just let's implement it here. Budget. Get budgets will be the name of our route here. We'll call it get budgets. think action is what it wants there. And we need to figure out how we render JSON. I think there's like a, yeah, there we go. I think response represents an HTTP response in JSON format. This class is not forced to return it to be an object. It is, however, recommended that you return an object as it protects yourself against excess. So we're going to return that. I need semicolons in PHP. I forget sometimes. So we're going to return a JSON response, and let's take a look at the response format our API needs. Now, if we take a look at app, our budget looks something like this. So this is in JavaScript. What we want to do is fetch this in the same format from the back end. So we're going to go and add this here. So we can take a look and just, you know what, we don't have the real estate we need here, which is kind of annoying. I'm going to just split this window vertically so we can put this here, and so we want to mimic this format. So we have two top level properties of this API response: income streams and expenses. And those are both arrays of objects. Right, yeah, so, and the objects have 4 properties for income streams, and that's key, gonna be 1. We have name, we have frequency, and amount. So key 1, our name is paycheck. Frequency is twice per month. The amount is $2,000. Our expenses are similarly formatted, but they don't have a frequency for now. I don't know, maybe we'll add that in later. Who knows? We're trying to keep things simple, guys. Keep it simple, stupid. Let's create a few more of these. Hitting Command D here to duplicate these rows. Our keys need to be unique for React. So we have paycheck, investment income of $200 once a month. That's it for now. It's actually, so our expense is going to be mortgage. The amount, I think we should do a negative number, negative 1,300. And let's add our 3 other expenses. HOA, 400. Thanks, living downtown. The phone is negative 120, and internet is negative 60. Need unique keys, and this is for the React front end. We're not using this, so I think Symphony needs this here in order to see where to go. I don't know. No. So let's see if our API endpoint works. I'm not sure if it will or not. Let's see. So when we installed Symfony, it gave us instructions. The instructions were execute the PHP bin console server start command. And we'll run this next to our front end server. So we're going to run this server start. Subject, we need to, of course, navigate to the endpoint. And it says, okay, server listening on this right here. So let's try and hit our endpoint. Curl is a command line application for making web requests. So we're going to curl budget because our route here is budget. And let's see what happens. Hey, that looks about right, doesn't it? Let's pipe that into Python to make it a little prettier. So here's our response, and we can even take this and test it and see how this works in our front end. So right now this isn't going to be feeding our front end, but we should see, I mean, these values are going to be negative now. We changed that, and we just want to see that this still works with this format. So let's go and open up WebStorm again, which has our front end. And let's just replace this budget object. So this is our API response, and let's see if we didn't break things. Wow, it still works. Cool. So now we should be able to load this response from our API. So now we actually have an API available. Let's implement it. Let's implement it from the front end. So we need a request library, and I think the standard is just request. I think it's called request. Let's see how many dependencies this has. I've been kind of on a crusade lately to limit the number of dependencies of my apps. So if this has to, oh god, look at this. This is awful. I want a simple HTTP library. Simple HTTP library for Node, or sorry, JavaScript. This is not recent enough. Programming, things move so fast, honestly. I don't look at anything from more than a year before unless I know what I'm looking for. If I'm doing discovery and I want some kind of want to find something new, a new package, I always look in recent time. HTTP Node and browser, that's good. Popsicle. This has 172 stars, so it's legit, I guess you could say. And ooh, it only has 4 dependencies. I don't know how many dependencies those 4 dependencies have, but it says it's the easiest way to make HTTP requests. That's pretty compelling. It's under active development. Looks like it's been changed within the last 18 days. 8 contributors. Let's see what the syntax looks like. So all we have to do yeah, this looks pretty simple. We'll use this for now. We'll probably wrap our API requests in some kind of service so we can swap this out easily or something. I don't know, but for now this is gonna do. We're gonna use Popsicle, guys, on the front end. What's it called? Just Popsicle. So we want to do this in our front end directory. So we're going to go up and we're going to go into My Money Manager and install Popsicle, save. Let's see. Yeah, so this is going to be real simple. For now, let's just gather. So we're not going to need this anymore. What we're going to do instead is import Popsicle from Popsicle, and our route was budget. So this is going to get our budget, and like eventually we're going to give it an ID or something, but for now we're just going to get budget. Then we need to somehow feed budget into our props here, which I'm not sure how to do with React anymore, so let's find out. React, what do you call it? It's like a combiner, updating props. Okay, after starting to work with React, since props are intended to be static, while state changes based upon events. However, I noticed in the docs reference components will receive props, which specifically includes this example. Component cannot update its own props unless they are arrays or objects. Having a component update its own props, even if possible, is an anti-pattern. Parent renders the component again with different properties. I think this is mostly an optimization. Let's just go to the React docs, guys. We need to find out how to pipe our API results, which contains the budget, into our component, our budget component, which I'm just not sure how to do yet. Can you see this? Yeah. So let's take a look. State and life cycle. Lifting state up. Cycle methods. Maybe asynchronous. We like asynchronous. Accepts a function rather than an object. Data flows down. How about when to load API data React? Loading data from APIs in React, and it's from the last year. React changes so fast that, oh man, I don't want to watch a video though. You can find the repository on GitHub. App.js, okay, all this does is render GitHub, same as ours. Okay, so we have this URL. We have constructor, I don't know if we need that just yet. Okay, so when the component mounts, then it does its fetching, and then it calls this set state. So right now we're using props. I guess we're going to use state for now. I don't know. I was thinking about using Redux and using Redux to manage props, but I think we'll give this a shot for now and see if this is less work because we're lazy. Let's pull this from the app. into our budget. So in our class component did mount, we're going to create this method here called fetch budget. That's a function that's going to return this promise. This promise that will contain the budget, I think, right? So fetch I think is going to be asynchronous, then response, return. We want to return res.body. And then all we do is we set the state. Right. Yeah. So when our component mounts, which is when React is, I think it's before React renders the component, I'm not quite sure of the life cycle, it's early on, we want to fetch our budget let's take a look at that real quick. Yep. Right. Fetch our budget, and then we have our budget, and we want to do this dot set state, and then budget. So this is going to this is going to add budget to the state, and then I think we're going to have to change some of our plumbing here, but what else do we do? GitHub data. See, we do, yeah. So the API endpoint that we're going to hit is http 127.0.0.1/budget, and we get that from our Symphony app. So if you want to list commands of list available commands for, where are we here? PHP bin/console should give us our commands available. I just want to see what our server, where our server is running. So we run PHP bin console and then our command, and it says, okay, web server is still listening on right here. So we want to take this and copy that in. That's our base URL, and then budget is the route to our budget resource that we created. Great. So now we're going to fetch budget. So when the component mounts, we're going to fetch budget. We're going to set that as our state. I'm not sure how we get the state yet. Okay, cool. So it's just this dot state. Should we spread? I think that's more like what we've been doing. So now instead of getting this from props, we want to get this from state. Let's take a look at our app and see what. I'm sure something's wrong. Popsicle is not defined. Okay, we need to import that. Remember, we imported that in app, but we forgot to copy that over when we moved the logic into the budget page. Can't read property income strings of null. Okay. So state is null here, it says. Interesting. I think maybe we need to implement a constructor here. I think the constructor is required for allowing us to access the state from render. State is just going to equal an empty object for now. Cannot read property map of undefined. Income streams isn't in there. Yeah, of course. So I guess maybe we need to set default state while we're loading. So income streams will be an empty array, and expenses will be an empty array. So if we go, I mean, this is just going to correspond to these guys here. This way it doesn't render anything at first. Okay, all right. Popsicle default get is not get is not a function. That's lame. Well, it certainly should be. Oh, wait. Let's do some debugging. I don't know what's going on here. I think we've done this right. So to do debugging, I'm gonna put it right above where everything's failing here. I'm just gonna throw a debugger right here, and this is gonna tell Chrome to stop right here when it executes this block of code. It's gonna stop at debugger, and we can kind of poke around and see what's going on. So Popsicle. Right now, Webpack makes this a little weird though. I don't know. Popsicle's not defined, it says here, which is obviously not right. But what are we complaining about? It says Popsicle default get. So this is, I think, what Popsicle is. Popsicle's a function. It doesn't have get. Maybe we didn't configure this correctly. Let's take a look again. Popsicle, use Popsicle plugins, JSON. Man, Popsicle, you're kind of losing me. Said it was that easy. Apparently it's not. Popsicle.get is not a function. I want to know what's broken here. Webpack's making it kind of a pain to maybe we need to require it. Maybe we need to require it. Well, I think that does the same thing, but we just want to see if it's no. Man. Does it have like, does it have a request? What version did we get? Let's take a look. Popsicle version 9.10. It's this version right here. Popsicle.get, not working. Let's try this other syntax, and if this doesn't work, we're giving up on Popsicle. Sad, but nobody has time for this. So in this one, we need to go back and get our base URL and budget. That's the name of the endpoint. See how this treats us. It's a little better. Okay, unable to connect to example.com/API. What? Why is it? Okay, this is better. See, this is our actual URL. Unable to connect to that. Give us a better error message, please. I think it had some error handling in here somewhere. Custom errors can be created. Error handling. Our responsibilities can return an error. Errors have a popsicle property set to the request object. Lame. Doesn't give us instructions for what to do on errors. Man, I think we're gonna switch to the request library, guys. I don't love it, but Popsicle's not doing it for us either, so I don't think this is it though, is it? How many downloads? Last day, 1 million. This is the one. Okay, let's install this one. This is how we install it. Let's go in here. Let's remove Popsicle. Sorry, Popsicle. Don't know how to use you. Don't know how to handle errors. Getting rid of that. And instead, we're going to import request. Request. We've got some instructions on how to use this right here. It's really simple. We're going to copy this. Does request do promises? Yeah, it's request promise violation. Request promise support powered by Bluebird. Yikes. Let's do another installation. I really don't like adding dependencies, but I want these promises. So we're going to import RP from request promise, and then the syntax for using this is right here. Oh man, I don't want that. Still want this. We're going to steal this URL again. Sorry I didn't delete it. And then kind of get something over JSON REST API. That's us. JSON true. So the URI, JSON true. So let's go parse it into JSON budget. Let's put debugger here. Let's see what we get if we get to this point. And let's restart. Okay, I don't know why it stopped there. Alright, so here we are in our fetch budget. It doesn't look like it's been updated yet. It's not building. Res is not defined. Yeah. Right there. Can resolve request promise. Request promise should be in here somewhere. No, but it's not. Oh, darn it, we did it in our API. We don't need that. Sorry, so we installed that node module into our API, which is obviously wrong. We need that in our front-end app. Backend is in Symphony with PHP. It doesn't need a node dependency. Okay, so let's see. Cannot resolve. Enable now. Can't find module request promise. But there it is. What's the request in there? Module can find my manager. The request of a dependency is an expression. See, now we have all this error output because we added these dependencies. It's really annoying. But what are you gonna do? This is so gross. Then this set state. Oh man. Alright, we're not going to use request promise. This trial and error is getting kind of annoying. Wanted promises, but we can't have everything. Just going to do this. Copy from there. I think it's not going to parse JSON by default. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do parsing ourselves, but it's okay. Let's just see if this will work. Okay, it's complaining. Can I read properties item undefined? That still hasn't already loaded, I think. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So our request worked. It couldn't respond because we've got this. We're loading from another URL, and this is a browser security feature. It's not going to let you load from another URL. So we're trying to load from 127.0.1 port 8000, but our front end is hosted at localhost 3000. So we need to go and allow cross-origin requests. And there's a PHP Symfony, or what do you call it? Composer package for that. Nelmio cross-origin. Let's see. Cores bundle, and it's been updated recently. Yeah, 3 months. It's good enough. And all we have to do is register the bundle. So we're going to go into our API. We're going to composer. We have composer. No. We're going to need to install composer. And read, write, execute. Okay. This is going to install Composer for us. And then Composer is going to allow us to install this cross-origin bundle that, yep, there we go. PHP composer.var require Nelmio cores bundle. It's thinking. While it's thinking, we can go and get the next thing we have to do. So we're going to have to go into our kernel, our app kernel that I showed you earlier that has all those bundles in it, and add this as another bundle. So this is in our API. Let's flip over to PHP Storm. App kernel's right here. Just add that guy as recommended. Still installing. Composer is like the slowest dependency management system around, basically. So we'll let that cook and take a look at the configuration defaults and the default values. Pass. Example config contains all possible config values. Maybe it'll work by default. How's our composer installation going? Okay, cool. There we go. Okay. So now maybe we can do cross-origin requests. I'll show you exactly what it does if this works. Play, start playing. Error type failed to fetch. Let's see what happens if we use curl to grab this. Okay, so it's still there. Let's do curl I, and this is going to give us the headers and everything. So what we're looking for is like a allow cross origin. This header right here needs to be in there. So we need to figure out how we configure. So the defaults are all default values with all paths that match unless overridden specific. Contains all the possible config values of the default values showing the defaults key. Allow credentials, allow origin. So we want to configure this. This goes in our config dev. We only want this in config dev. And so I think this is for everything. So we're just going to allow origin from anywhere. Let's see if this helps. I think we're going to need to blow out our cache. So to do that, bin console, look for the command. I think it's cache clear, or clear cache. Yeah, cache clear. That's going to clear our cache. So now gonna reload that config, hopefully. Maybe we'll see some cross-origin headers. We don't. Is that easy? Let's just see if this guy's got it. Clear our cache again. Still don't have our headers. It's pretty weird. Let's add this to base config. Instead of going all the way up to our dev config, we'll just add this to the root config. I'm not sure if the server's running in dev mode. I think it is, but who knows? Okay. This is Elmio cores bundle not working. Maybe it only comes through the options or something. I don't know. Error is null. That's good. Maybe I just don't know how. Hey, it worked. Okay. Let's take a look at the network tab so I can show you what this did. So we just fooled around with that for no reason. I guess it was working. What happens is we have this response that tells us, so now our header contains this access control allow origin, and that lets the browser know that it's okay to load this stuff. So that's cool. Now we're going to go back to our front end. Now that we've got our body coming in. This is not a promise, so I think we want a promise. JavaScript promises. Let's return a promise instead of a callback. Instead of passing a callback, rather. How do we create a promise? I want to know. Let's see if is a promise available to us. Yes. Alright. So we're just gonna do new promise. Okay, this is how we create the promise. So since we couldn't figure out how to get that promise library to work, we're going to return a new promise from here. Inside of that, this resolve method, we want to call that after our request is called, and we want to resolve JSON. What is that method? How do you parse a string? Is it parse? Parse. It's JSON.parse. Parse body. And then, in theory, this is going to be fetch budget's going to return a budget as a JSON object. So let's see if that worked. Remove that. All right. Well, feeling pretty good about that. What's it complaining about? Cannot appear as a child table. Add a T-body. Okay, so this is complaining. I think that actually just worked. It's calling from state. Let's refresh and see. Yeah, I mean, I think it's working. Looks like we're loading from our API. So to make sure that this is working, let's just go in here, and this is our backend. Let's add a new income stream. Let's say consulting. We make $400 twice a month. So now we should be able to refresh and see that here, I think. Hey, alright, our API is working. So we have an API now. Obviously, we're not persisting this API to a database, even though I kind of walked through installing a database earlier. I think that this is probably a good stopping point. What we've done is we have created an API that will list our budget and implemented that API on our front end. So now we're actually fetching data. We'll be able to persist that to a database and read from a database maybe in the next section. So I think what we'll do right now is just clean up our error messages here. It looks like React is kind of bossy about the format of our tables. So I guess we need a T-body here. I think is what this is complaining about. We'll do the same for here. Let's see if that works. Oh, it's beautiful. No error messages. Okay, but except for this one. TR cannot appear as a child of table. So that's probably, I hope that is what that is about, but. Alright, there we go. Critical dependency. The request of a dependency is an expression. What does that mean? Oh, that's Webpack. Webpack's just complaining. Cool. So I think we're good. We have an API now, guys. So now we're actually loading results from the API, rendering those results on the front end. Next up, I think we'll talk either persistence or we'll style this guy a little better, and then eventually we'll go on to deploying this, creating maybe a deployment pipeline, and then deploying it on AWS or something like that. Alrighty, guys, thanks for watching. Till next time.